Welcome to The Fix. Sit down with copywriting experts Nick O'Connor and Glenn Fisher as they review, discuss, and improve real-world copy sent in by you. This is The Fix.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Fix. We have a special guest joining us on the show today. Kelly Brown is the head of copy at Stansberry Research. Now, we're going to be talking a little bit more about Stansberry, the company and the copy team at Stansberry, and Kelly's own approach to writing copy as today's show goes on. We also have two things that you absolutely need to stick around for. So the first one, Kelly's going to be telling you all about an opportunity to join the team at Stansberry, and I'll talk a little bit more about why that's something you should absolutely be interested in, particularly if you're interested in writing financial copy. And Kelly's agreed to share a resource that's usually only reserved for copywriters on her in-house team. It's an idea generating resource. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the second part of the show, but make sure you stick around for both of those things, because this is, me and Glenn are very excited to have Kelly on the show. So Kelly, welcome to The Fix.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Before we do all of that though, as always, why don't we dive straight in to a piece of copy? Glenn, you bring it up on screen. Now, I've made sure that this is a piece of financial copy, so we're going to have to try and avoid me completely losing my mind and kind of geeking out, because obviously this is my this is the industry that I spend 99% of my time writing in. So obviously something that Glenn has a lot of experience in, and Kelly spends most of her time writing financial copy too, which is why we wanted to talk about this. Glenn, do you want to read it aloud, and then maybe I'll let one of you two say something?
Yeah. I won't do my vocal warm-ups because it's the first time Kelly's been in this situation and she might be horrified by that. So I'll go in normally. Here we go. An urgent message to investors. Boost your retirement savings every 120 days with the Secret Wealth Fortress. Thanks to a groundbreaking IRS code, investors can now safely turn a $5,000 investment into $11,600 in any market. Also, see how it was kept hidden from regular investors for over 50 years, why it's trending upwards even during inflation, how it rose to become one of the highest paying dividend firms, handing investors dividend payouts more than triple the S&P, why it may take another 3 to 5 years before a wealth wave like this repeats itself, and the one simple move you need to make today so you don't miss out. Dear reader, America's economic future hasn't looked this gloomy in a long time. In the last 6 months alone, $9 trillion has been wiped off Americans' accounts thanks to falling stock market prices. And that figure is expected to reach $10 trillion in the coming weeks, according to CNBC. Add that to the $3 trillion cut from retirement accounts, billions in inflation costs, and a potential 23% cut in Social Security benefits. That's more than $13 trillion of Americans' hard-earned money gone. Sadly, this is just the beginning of a much bigger crisis. Already, Bloomberg is saying that inflation in the US will last much longer, quoted by Bloomberg, and the Fed plans to keep raising interest rates for the next 9 months, indirectly making Americans pay an extra $12,577 from their savings. And if it eventually goes through with its plans, things are likely to go downhill from there. Financial Times probably read between the lines when it reported that we're headed towards a recession, and then quote by the Financial Times, US set for recession. There we go.
Right, scroll back up. Lovely. So while you two digest that, because as always, we don't share the copy that we're reviewing ahead of time. So this is a first take from everybody. A couple of points that I would make just to kick us off. So the positives here. This is clearly aimed at the investment community. So the prospect is pretty well defined and called out. And it does address the extent how well it addresses these things we can talk about, but it definitely addresses challenges that target market and that potential prospect would be having to do with falling markets, threats to their wealth and things like that. And it attempts to address some of those things in a sort of promise-driven way. So from a starting point, technically, I think we're in the right space. One thing that I thought reading it to begin with, and this may become a discussion about the big idea, which is obviously useful, but can also be slightly a cliche, is I'm worried that I've read lots of those things elsewhere. And so what I'd be worried about, if you're saying very similar things to other people out there in the market, you just run the risk of the next guy making a bigger claim, a sillier claim, lying, going further than you're willing to go, say that you'll make the money quicker, faster, easier. And if you're in that space, most businesses are just going to be outflanked by the person that will say anything. So you need to try and get yourself into a space where what is the thing we can say about what we're doing here that nobody else can say, because then we can own that space and nobody can outflank us by saying the guaranteed wealth fortress, the $10 trillion instant wealth fortress. You see it becomes a sort of one-upsmanship. And that would be my concern here, that while it's strong in some areas, it's missing that thing that makes you think, I've never heard that before.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the thing that would make it a little bit more unique is there's little to no credibility. It's one thing to hear about a secret wealth fortress. It's another thing to hear about a secret wealth fortress from someone who used to run a hedge fund, someone who might have government connections. I agree with what you're saying, that certainly this writer has done a tremendous amount of research in the space because they know what's going on, they know what the pain points are, they know what the media is saying. But to me, if this were to go through our copy review process, we would say that it's a lot of warm-up copy, that the writer is simply just trying to show us how much research they've done, but they're not exactly sure what the actual idea is yet. Because it's not necessarily greedy, it's not necessarily fearful, it's a little bit of both, and there's just a lot going on. Even in the headline itself, there's something about something happening every 120 days, an IRS code, that it's hidden, that it's related to inflation. I would suggest taking some time to really boil down what it is the writer wants to say. Like, what is your single idea in a sentence?
Yeah,
I think that's that cuts straight to the core. You were both skating around it, but I think Kelly just hit on the nail on the head there. There is, like, I think each line is almost like a promo in itself, or could be an idea promo. You've got the 120 days thing. That reminds me of, like, and I'm just going to talk in terms of like cliche promo things, but like that's like a calendar promo. So you could go with like a systematic thing where it's like, oh, every 120 days you're going to get this thing. Secret Wealth Fortress is the kind of story kind of lead kind of thing where you're going to talk about this wealth fortress. I don't really understand what that is, and it sounds a little bit kind of silly. It might be supported by a credible thing, but like a wealth fortress, I don't know. I'm just thinking of Superman at the moment in an icy like his Fortress of Solitude, but that's a completely different thing. But that's a story leader might be able to riff on.
Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, there's a promo in the Fortress of Solitude somewhere. I haven't figured it out yet. But then you've got this groundbreaking IRS code that is like 3 words that is just dropped in. What's that? That's like a secret code kind of promo. And then you've got like all these other things that just we come to this so often, but it is too many ideas at once. What I liked about what Kelly said, though, how you would have it's someone's warming up, and it's someone's doing the working out on the page rather than the working out in the head and going, right, I've got all these things, what shall I do? This is like it's almost as if they've made notes for all the promos they could write, but they're not taking it to the next stage.
At the same time, we are all curious about what the fortress is,
Yeah.
So Is it options? Is it something with dividends? I saw that was mentioned. So there is a very strong element of intrigue in it. It's just in my opinion, not structured in a way that is paired with the benefit in such a way to make the copy stand on itself.
That's true, actually. That this is almost it's kind of the soil from which an idea will grow. I mean, I think so. If this was presented to me in a copy review, I would imagine I would say, tell me what the idea is. Just put the copy a second away for 1 second. Tell me what the idea is, and they wouldn't be able to say it in a sentence. That was always, for me, that was the tell. If you can't just tell me, never mind write it down. You can't just tell me what the idea is yet. Probably not quite ready. But like Glenn said, all of those elements could be an idea. By the way, the bullet points is a bit of a giveaway for me, that there's lots going on, that we're maybe trying to be all things to all people here. We're talking, which is fine, actually. I get it logically as a process. I'm thinking, here's my prospect. They're worried about inflation. They want things that nobody else knows about. They want income. We've got to have some urgency. There's an IRS. These are all the elements. But it's, as we always say, that adding those things together doesn't strengthen; it weakens. And you need to select and amplify. So there's probably 4 leads that we could write here.
Right.
We could probably do something with the IRS. That's probably where I would go. I'd want to know, what is that code? Can I make that feel like IRS creates root through crisis for Americans? That would be the first thing I would write. It wouldn't be the headline, but it would be, why was it kept hidden? I'd want to just push each sentence almost, and push the writer to say, come on, justify why you've written that. What is it that you're really saying? Because one of those things, they'll say the thing, it's actually a shame we don't have the writer with us, because I actually know the writer behind this piece of copy. But yeah, I think it's a select and amplify issue, right? We've got to figure out which bits we want to do, and then blow them up into a 10 and try and make it into something that nobody else can come along and do anything even remotely similar.
I think, like Kelly said, though, we even the wealth fortress thing, you are intrigued by it, but I think you've got to remember that when you do something when you are creating intrigue, you have a responsibility to the reader to pay off that intrigue, to lead them on and say, right, this is where we're going. If you think about this, if I saw that as a headline, whether it was on a video promo or just a typical kind of HTML thing or a written promo, you'd be kind of going, okay, what is this secret wealth fortress? It's never mentioned again. Right. Even in the first, what would call the lead there, I'd expect to say, dear reader, there's something going on, and that you just need to pepper that through there. And I think that just for the writer here, when they do come back to that idea and pick the one out, you have to, as well as amplifying, you have to commit to an idea. If you've got something interesting, I've got this secret wealth fortress idea, commit to it, and write the promo about that. Then afterwards you can go and dress it with the extra stuff. You can get some of your research, and you can get some more urgency, you can get some credibility in, but commit to the idea and write that first. I'd expect to see it has to be referred to again in the first 6 lines. Glenn,
on that, because I actually have a question for Kelly about how she would approach this with her team. But could you just quickly, before we come to that, could you just scroll down to look at that lead? Because I just wanted to make a technical point, which I thought might be useful. Okay, so I'm talking about everything below dear reader. If you just look at that, I'm not going to read it out again, but it's there on the screen. There's a lot of numbers. They're big numbers: 9 trillion, 10 trillion, 3 trillion. Then you've got 23%, 13 trillion. I always think that number of numbers in a lead is a sign that you are trapped in the rational, logical register, which is where we do not want to be, especially in a lead, because nobody has an emotional connection to a number. Spoiler alert, no matter how big it is. That's a mistake lots of copywriters make, which is, if we made the number bigger, people would feel something, but they won't. We have to be in the register of feelings about that's why we start with stories, the way people feel right now when they wake up in the morning and they see this stuff happening. how does that manifest itself? We need to talk to them as an individual and about the way they're feeling about these things rather than relying on numbers. Because again, if we rely on numbers, there's a million journalists out there doing that. Our
Right.
work will just get bundled in with their stuff. We don't want to be in that register, you know?
I agree. There's a very, very important word that's missing from the lead. And I think it's missing from the entire lead. And that's the word you. Like it's not written like to anyone specifically, even though I think it was intended to, it had investors in the eyebrow copy. And clearly it's towards investors, but really it should be written to one person.
Yeah. I mean, actually, at this time specifically, so if you're watching this at a later date, we're talking in mid-March. There's been just been a huge banking crisis and bailouts, and most of our customers will be thinking, "Here we go again." It's really easy. This doesn't change the idea at all. But if I was just rewriting that to make it feel different, I would. Where's our reader now? Well, they're probably thinking, "This feels like 2008."
Right.
So, if you're feeling, even if your lead just becomes dear reader, you're probably thinking a lot about what happened back in 2008. Remember how it felt when Lehman's went on. You can probably remember well how scary that, we can get into that feeling that we can talk about their emotions. Now, it doesn't change the fact that we'd still need to select a different idea, but we can do what this lead is doing in a different way by technically removing the numbers, talking directly to the person, and talking and focusing on the way they feel rather than the data, because the data will never do any work for us ever, no matter how big the number is. It could be 200 trillion. Nobody really cares. And I think that's actually something I see a lot with people who are making their way in the industry, that they find a big number and they mistake that for being an idea.
Yeah.
But it's 200 trillion.
Nobody can fathom that. Nobody knows how much. Yeah.
Well, if you boil it down to small numbers, nobody feels differently about the number 8 to the number 9. They're just numbers. But
I much prefer the number 8, Nick. You've hit upon a sore point with me.
Okay.
I have problems with the number 9, but
I like the number 7. But you know what I mean? People don't have emotional attachments to number amounts.
Right.
They don't. They feel things differently. It's a different register. And it's
really I'd also say a good little handy like cheat for copyright. I mean, if you just read stuff aloud, read it aloud. But when I was almost being playful when I read those numbers out and said $13 trillion, I think it's really easy as a copywriter to because you put in the dollar sign that you just think it's a little number. But when you actually think about what's going on in a reader's mind when they read that thing, they're probably going to think dollars, or they think, but you think it's quick, but it's not. It takes ages to say these numbers. So when you're saying them out like that, it's just like, oh, it's a number. It physically, like when you're reading it, it seems like a preposterous thing when you're saying all these unimaginable numbers over and over again. So it's another reason to read aloud and listen back to what you're saying, because it just, no matter how factually accurate and interesting those numbers might be, they just sound like maths in your head, and that's not.
Well, they're statistics, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's the Stalin thing of, 1 million deaths is a statistic, whereas 1 death is a tragedy. So if you apply that logic to $13 trillion of Americans' hard-earned money gone, that is never going to be as powerful as telling the story of one person who woke up and found it was all gone.
Yeah.
And that you can tell that story and then say, and Mrs. Miggins wasn't alone. $13 trillion have gone. So you can use the number differently to back up the story. Anyway, I've gone on longer than I wanted to. Kelly, I wanted to ask you, one of the first things you said was about credibility. And it does strike me that as an outside observer, Stansberry has a very particular style of writing copy. Credibility is a huge part of that. One of the things that I've noted is that one of the ways in which you guys position ideas so that they are, unique and uncopyable is by pulling out the credibility of the person talking, the unique elements of the person. So can you tell me a bit about how that style developed? And then maybe, if you can, how you you'd start to think about applying that process to a piece of copy like this, or like any piece of copy, you know?
Sure. But I do want to go back to one thing you said previously about the economic environment that we're in currently. A writer on my team, his name is Adam Wiederman, had a fantastic idea about a week or so ago, when everything was happening with SVB. We created a team Google document, and we all noted that this is a very important financial moment. We're going to be referencing this in copy for a long time. We're going to need to be experts on what's happening. So at the same time, we'll always have the news articles to go back to, but we should be logging what sort of conversations you're hearing when you go to a party, what you're hearing from your friends or family members. So what sort of tweets are going out right now? What are we seeing on social media? So as we went through SVB, now we're going through UBS and the Credit Suisse stuff. We're keeping this team document of all of this very emotional proof that we can reference when we're writing about this 5 years from now. But back to credibility.
Yeah.
How do we infuse credibility within our copy? It's a lot of interviews. It's a lot of time spent with our gurus and our editors. We're expected to read everything that they've published. And not only internalize what they're predicting, but kind of to what I was just saying, what are they predicting while people are feeling a certain way? So if someone is one of our gurus predicted the collapse of Lehman Brothers, that's great. But why is that so interesting? It's because he was ridiculed for it. It's because at the time, Lehman Brothers was, one of the largest financial institutions in the world. So we use his actual credibility to infuse what his character is like. So I think in most financial promotions, you'll see, oh, this person predicted the collapse of 2008. They called the tech bubble. But we try to take it one step further and explain why those predictions mattered when they were made. So it adds a little bit more weight to the prediction that they'll then be making in the promotion that you're about to read. So my first comment to this writer would be similar to yours. What exactly do you want to say? What story do you want to tell me? Tell me in 2 sentences. And then from there, who is telling me this story and why do I care? Where are they in their financial journey? Are they someone who has preserved wealth through decades of financial turmoil, or are they someone who maybe has just gotten a start in the last couple of years, but has this very unique way of approaching the market? So who's telling your story matters just as much as the story that they're telling.
Oh, definitely. I think one of the ways I've always thought about it was when I first started as a copywriter. So this was years ago. I remember we were in the chateau back when Agora writers would go to the chateau in France. So Bill Bonner owns a chateau there. We would all go, drink lots of wine and talk about copy. That was basically the agenda. But Bill gave this talk where he charted what we do onto like onto a curve, onto a chart. I call it the publishing yield curve, but that's just probably a highfalutin way. But it starts with information. Information is free. And then judgment and wisdom is the most expensive, right? And in between, you have analysis, reporting, expert analysis, data, all these different things. And I think it's really important that what we sell in the financial industry is always going to be judgment, right? Like people have judgment. Institutions don't have judgment. Companies don't. Even systems don't really. People have that. We ultimately sell one person's judgment on the markets. And I think credibility ties into that, because to go back to something I was saying at the start, someone else out there can tell you that they think the banks are going to collapse. The claim is the interchangeable part, really. Every now and again, you get a claim that nobody has made. Mm-hmm. It's very, very rare in our industry because the industry is so big now and there's people on the fringes who will say anything.
Yep.
Yeah. So we have to try and find that way of owning it. And I think that way is to recognize that judgment element and to bring credibility to play, because we were talking off camera before this about things are the editors that we've worked with have told us, and it's like, I'm not going to repeat any of them, but those are the things that make that person unique, those details, those elements of their history, their credibility, past predictions, credentials, whatever it might be. Those are the things that nobody can steal from us.
I like the fact that you say about it, you use the word infuse, I think, Kelly, but it's from a copywriter's perspective. How, if you're watching this, I'm a copywriter, how do I get better? How do I do these things? It's something we talk about a lot, Nick, but like it's good to hear it from such a successful like copy team as well, that it's become this, it's inherent now. But it is, when you go to write copy, there are what I'd call tricks or technical ways you can like add credibility and do all that stuff. There's stuff we all use and pepper into the copy, but the way you actually do it, and the only way you can truly do it, is to infuse it in your writing, to infuse it in you, so that when you are writing about that topic, when you are writing about that idea, when you are writing about these things, you personally understand, are infused with that idea and that editor or that guru's knowledge and their take and their personality, that you can then, as I always describe, like physically running at the thing. But you are that writer. You are writing as them, because you are writing in their tone of voice, in their style, going, well, this is what I believe. And that's where real, you could say authenticity, but it's another way of saying credibility comes from. It's the credibility of you understanding and displaying that in your language as a writer. And that's there's no cheat for that. There is, you started before you said that about the idea of seeing what people are tweeting, seeing what think about stuff now. You're future-proofing your ability to be credible by looking around and going, oh, that's how people are saying this now. I need to get that into the writing. I need to get that in now, so that I will be, when I come to write that promo in 5 years' time, refer to that, it will be inherent in me, because I know that. We know those words, we know those phrases that people are using, but there's no cheat for it. You've just got to listen and take that on board.
I also think there's a way to add credibility through vulnerability. So one of the questions we'll typically ask our gurus is, tell me about the best trade you ever made. Tell me about the worst trade you ever made. When was the time you were frightened in the markets? One of our most successful promotions of the last couple of years talks about our guru who had decades of experience in the markets, watching his wife lose half of her 401k in the 2008 collapse, and thinking like, oh my gosh, how could I have let this happen to my own wife? So we tell that story, but in doing that, you see his character, you see how much skin he has in the game of the system he built, how much how important it is to him. Like, if this is something that he is putting his wife's investment accounts in, then surely it's something that's good enough for everyone. So it's fine to add those elements of humanity, because it's just a different way of getting to see who someone is before you're signing up for their advice.
It's also a great differentiator again on the copy side.
Mm-hmm.
So I've talked a bit about, all the people out there in the market, could be other copywriters, other publishers, but if you go for the vulnerability and you go for the things that other copywriters haven't asked them about yet, you automatically bring your copy into a space that nobody has written about yet, right? Because I can guarantee what most copywriters do when it comes to credibility is they look at the previous free promotions for that guru, they take the bits they like from the promotion and they rehash them. So they probably never even get close to actually asking the guru to tell the story to them again, because it's like, well, it's all here. Somebody else has done all that work. And I always used to say to our copywriters when they were starting, don't do that. Go and ask them to tell you the story again. You have to find the thing nobody's heard yet.
And it can be intimidating. Like, I would say most of us are natural introverts, and it can be difficult when you're first starting to talk to people with such esteemed backgrounds, but you have to do it. You have to do it because you're representing the reader, and you don't know as much as they don't know. So you need to get their questions answered if you expect to write anything that's going to compel them enough to purchase.
People do like talking about themselves as well. So not to disparage anybody, because I'm just like it, but if you ask somebody to tell you their story, their origin story, I always call it, they usually, in my experience, maybe if you can get a beer into their hand as well, they'll usually tell you that story, and there'll usually be something in that story that nobody else has heard yet. And a lot of the time, as soon as they say it, you think, well, that's the idea then, isn't it? That's right. That's the thing. It's finding the thing no publisher can say and no copywriter has bothered to look for, I suppose, if we were boiling it down.
There's nothing better than when you're in a meeting with a couple of copywriters and you're interviewing an editor and they say one thing and all the copywriters just look at each other and go, that's it. That's the story. That's where
you can go now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually on that subject, so let's talk about the project that you've got going on at the moment, which is, I'm going to let you talk about it because you know far more about it than me, but effectively you're trying to grow your copy team at the moment, right? And that's where the opportunity that I mentioned at the start of the show comes in. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing.
Sure. So at the end of April 26th and 27th, we are hosting our third ever Stansberry boot camp. And what that is, it's a 2-day event. It's in Annapolis, Maryland. And it's a invitation, hopefully for folks with experience in the industry to come and meet our team, meet our senior writers, meet my mentor, Mike Palmer, and learn a little bit about us and how we approach copy and what sort of metrics we use. We're sharing information that we never have before. So things like click-through rates, how we write ads, how we structure promotions. And the hope is that we bring on a new class of around 5 to 6 new writers. So we've only really taken on 3 different classes in the last maybe 12 years. And I came in on a class. I have copy chiefed a class before, and it's such a fantastic way to learn copy and to learn a business. You have an immediate network of peers. You have a little bit of healthy competition. And also right now at Stansberry, there's really more projects than there are copywriters. Our team is very lean at the moment. We're right now in the process of building out 3 unique brands. So we have copy ideas that are looking for some really great writers to work on them. And we're offering mentorship. We're offering the chance to be on a team. My hope is that people will see what a great opportunity it is when they read our copy ad. But yeah, just looking to get to know some people and then bring some folks onto the team.
So I would just say, as somebody so this is the same model that I used when I was running the office in London to recruit. Obviously, there's variables and stuff, but the approach of the focused period of time, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 days, where we as the publisher get to know you as the writer, and you as the writer get to know us as the publisher. However, that exchange of ideas and information and that gelling of personalities and just getting to know each other is such a better way for everybody involved to find the right people. Because some people think, do you know what, this isn't for me. Other people just love it, and it's just their first introduction to this world of direct response copywriting and financial copywriting, and they're just compelled. And from the publisher side, you really get to see, because you're spending lots of time with people, right, who those people are with the glint in their eye, and you just think, yeah, I can see you going places. And so I would say, if you're interested in having a career in the financial industry, it's definitely something you should, or you should be kicking Kelly's doors down to take part. So Kelly, we're going to post a little bit more information underneath the video on YouTube, and then we'll also include it in the email that we send out with this episode. But what do people actually have to do if they want to, because this isn't an open door event, right? This is invitation only. So how do people get themselves on that list?
Sure. So best thing to do is you will post the link, but it's stansberrycopyjob.com. It'll map everything out for you. We're asking folks to apply, send us a short letter why you should come to the boot camp, or why you deserve a spot on the team. And then if you have writing samples to send us, we're also happy to do something like what we did today, review your copy, talk about any ideas that you might be working on. One unique element to the boot camp is on the second day, we actually have most of our top editors and all of the writers in one of our idea pitching sessions. So it's a chance to actually see how our team works in person. So you'll be sitting theater style. You can watch us pitch ideas. You can watch us workshop ideas. You can hear the type of ideas that we get from our editors that we can then take and run with. And these are the exact meetings where we'll come up with the idea for our next $10, $15 million promotion. So if you are a financial copywriter, feel free to steal our ideas. That's fine. You can come. No one's going to write two ideas exactly the same way. So if you're just curious to hear what our team will be writing about for the next 4 to 6 months, this is exactly where we'll be discussing it. And we'd love for you to sit alongside us.
I think I've got to get it out of my head, because otherwise it will consume me, like everything does that goes on in my head. But to give anybody who's into financial copywriting, I think will know Stansberry. I think they've probably come across Mike Palmer. If they've not, then I always describe him as like one of the best like living copywriters that no one knows exists, kind of thing, because of the nature of him, which is interesting itself. I know you, Kelly, I know all the writers at Stansberry, but I can't help but going back, I can now picture it. Many years ago, Nick mentioned the chateau that Bill used to run and do these copy camps. I think it was the first one I ever went to. So I was very like wet behind the ears, didn't know what the hell was going on. I'd only just kind of started and went to this copy camp. But at that particular one, and I think it was the last one, but a team from Stansberry, the copywriters, were there. And there was like cool Americans. I'm a bit of a kind of what's the opposite of Anglo? What's American file?
I don't
know. Are there any?
Yeah, anyway, I like no one from England.
I don't know. You said cool Americans, and I'm like,
yeah, exactly. Anyway, I liked like American. I was like, oh, but anyway, I just remember me and like my friend at the time were like, the Stansberry copywriters kind of like almost hovered in like Jedi, and we were like, who are these people? And every idea was like, I've got this idea, and it's like, oh, stupid piece of copy, rubbish. And then Stansberry would be like, and just deliver this idea. It was like, what the hell is going on? Who are these like incredible copy people? And I think that's because of like Stansberry's history and everything, and Mike mainly as well, Mike Palmer. I think it's just, that's, if anybody's going, oh yeah, why don't, because it's like being in the best like group there is. It's like, it's a really, really amazing opportunity, which I know I'm thinking about people that follow Fix, people that know us and what have you. And it is an opportunity to like kind of transform your life. I know it's a bit waffy and a bit silly.
That's incredibly kind, yeah.
But I think it is.
In the job posting itself, there are testimonials from all the current writers, so you can hear what it's like to join the team from other from if you have other experience, if you're brand new. There's some great stories in there.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If it's not going to be for everybody. It's like it's not I'll just try that. That sounds cool. But if you're a certain type of, probably at a certain stage in your copy career, maybe I imagine, and you're like, oh, actually, I've got a bit of freedom. I could go there. I could do this. I could make myself part of this. It comes fully endorsed from me, I'd say, anyway. And you can become
no higher praise. So you can become a copy Jedi. So here's what's going to happen next. Like we said, everything you need to know will be posted both in the email and below this video. We're now going to talk to Kelly about the types of people that she thinks will be successful at bootcamp, kind of things she's looking for in a new writer, and what she's going to tell us about an idea generating sort of framework that they use in-house at Stansberry, just to give you a little bit of the inside track. However, This second part of the conversation is just going to be for Fix Accelerator members only. So if you're not subscribed to the Fix Accelerator, then we're about to say goodbye. You can get stuck into the opportunity that we've told you about with lots of good luck from us. But if you want a little bit more information, if you want a bit of the inside track, and if you want more from Kelly, then consider becoming a subscriber to the Fix Accelerator. It costs just £10 a month, so it's really not something that's going to break the bank for anyone. And let me tell you, just the stuff we're about to talk about alone will be well worth the entry price. So thank you very much for joining us if you're a Fix member, and goodbye for now.
If you enjoy the Fix and want to get access to even more good stuff, join the Fix Accelerator today. Get access to special masterclasses from Nick and me, watch expert interviews with industry legends, join live copy feedback sessions every week, and get connected to our very own private copy network. Visit thefixaccelerator.com for more information.